All the meat has been marinated and we are now ready for the grilling process. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this all ready to cook. The key is to find that balance, between pushing yourself and also listening to your body. Hello, yes, I wanted to see if you were available for dinner tonight.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up here. I'll be home in about an hour.
Hey, come over here.
Hello, yes. I'm calling about the shipment. Is it ready for pickup?
I think the most important thing is to be consistent.
I've been working here for 20 years now. It's a good place, good people. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. We have a strong team. So this new software should streamline our entire workflow.
I'm interested to see how it integrates with our current systems.
The morning began softly in the valley, where mist clung to the green ridges and the sound of roosters carried through the air. Tu Diep rose early, as she always did, her body already attuned to the rhythm of farm life. She stepped barefoot onto the cool earth outside her small wooden house, breathing in the scent of dew on grass. The sky was pale, a gentle canvas of blue slowly brightening with the promise of another long day. Inside, the fire in her clay stove was already smoldering from the embers she had banked overnight. She crouched to feed it small sticks of wood, coaxing the flames until they licked upward, warming the modest room. As she worked, she murmured softly, as if speaking to herself, but also to someone far away. "Good morning, James," she whispered. "Another day here without you." Her voice carried a mixture of strength and longing. James was far across the sea, working tirelessly to establish himself in a foreign country. Though they spoke on the phone when possible, the distance weighed heavily on her. She missed his steady voice, his gentle encouragement, the way his presence once filled the silence of the house. Still, she had promised herself to be patient. For his sake, she would wait. Tu Diep was not entirely alone. A small boy had been staying with her these past weeks, left in her care until his parents could return. His presence had filled the house with laughter and innocent questions, easing her solitude. She often reminded herself that life had a way of giving and taking. James had gone far, but this child had come to keep her company for a while. That morning, the boy padded sleepily into the room, rubbing his eyes. He looked no more than 7 years old, his hair sticking up in tufts. "Teacher Diep," he mumbled. He had taken to calling her teacher, for she often helped him with reading. "I'm hungry." She laughed softly, ruffling his hair. "Of course you are. Sit here, and I'll make something for you." She placed rice in the pot, added water, and set it over the fire. As it cooked, she poured him a small cup of warm tea, diluted enough for a child, and handed him a piece of sweet potato leftover from the night before. He ate eagerly, swinging his legs beneath the low wooden bench. Watching him, Tu Diep felt a gentle warmth in her chest. She remembered her own childhood, the hunger that had sometimes gnawed at her belly, the uncertainty of each day. Life had been cruel, yet here she was now, providing for another. It felt like a small circle of healing. When breakfast was cleared, she tied a scarf around her head, ready to head into town. She needed supplies, salt, oil, and if fortune allowed, meat. She carried her basket, the boy skipping along beside her, and they set off along the dirt road that wound through the fields. The journey to town was long but familiar. Farmers passed by with their buffalo, Women carried baskets of greens to sell at the market, and children waved as they recognized Tu Diep. She greeted them all with a nod and a smile, though her mind was already occupied with practical matters. What could she afford today? What would last the week? As they neared the roadside leading into the market, she noticed a commotion ahead. A man stood beside a cart pulled to the side of the road. His brow furrowed in frustration. The cart's axle had snapped, and tied in the back was a large, restless pig. The animal grunted and shifted, causing the cart to creak dangerously. Tu Diep approached cautiously. "What happened?" she asked. The man looked up, sweat streaking his face. "My cart broke while I was taking this pig to sell at the market. I can't go any farther, and I need the money today." She studied the pig. It was strong, well-fed, its hide glistening under the sun. Her mind began to work quickly. Pork was valuable. Smoked and preserved properly, it could last for months, even be sold for a profit. But the price? "How much do you want for it?" she asked carefully. The man hesitated, then sighed. "1 million. That's less than I'd hoped, but I can't afford to wait. The cart won't move, and the market won't wait for me." 1 million. The number echoed in her mind. It was a large sum for her modest means, yet an opportunity like this would not come again soon. She thought of the long months ahead, of James still away, of the boy at her side who needed food every day. Slowly, she reached into her basket and pulled out the carefully folded bills she had brought. "I'll buy it," she said firmly. Relief flooded the man's face. "Thank you. Truly, you've saved me. Can you manage to take it home?" Tu Diep glanced at the pig, then at the boy, who watched wide-eyed. "It won't be easy," she admitted, "but I'll find a way." Together, she and the man tied the pig securely. Then, with great effort, they guided it toward her home. It squealed and resisted, but eventually, step by step, they managed to move it along the path until they reached the edge of the stream near her land. There, she knew she would have to butcher it. Her house did not have enough water for such a task, and the stream provided the cleanliness she required. She set her basket down, wiped her brow, and prepared herself. "Teacher, will it hurt?" the boy asked softly, looking at the animal. She crouched beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It will not be pleasant, but this is how we survive. From this pig, we will have food for many days. You must understand, little one. Life is sometimes harsh, but nothing should be wasted." He nodded solemnly, though his eyes were still wide with wonder and fear. Tu Diep drew her knife, frowning at its dull edge. "Too blunt," she muttered. "This will be hard work." The man who had sold her the pig offered a small blade of his own, sharper though still worn from use. She accepted gratefully. "Thank you." The process began slowly, the sound of rushing water masking some of the harsher noises. Tu Diep worked steadily, her hands strong and practiced despite the weight of the task. The boy sat on a rock nearby, holding a book she had brought for him, trying to distract himself with simple letters while occasionally glancing back at her. She noticed his gaze and smiled faintly. "Read to me," she said, her voice steady even as her hands worked. Hesitant, he began to recite the words he knew. Tree, sun, cat, goat. His small voice trembled but grew stronger with each word. "Yes, very good," she encouraged. "Keep going. The world is full of words. Learn them, and you will never be lost." The boy brightened, reading louder, as if his voice could cover the sounds from the stream. And perhaps, in a way, it did. The sun climbed higher, spreading golden light across the rippling stream. Lytudiep wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her sleeve. The knife in her hand, though sharper than her own, still made the work painstaking. She moved carefully, her arms aching but her mind focused. Every stroke mattered. This meat would need to last not just days but months if she managed it well. The boy sat nearby, still clutching his book, though now his gaze strayed more often to the work before him. Curiosity pulled at him, even as unease kept him quiet. Finally, he asked, "Teacher, why here? Why not at home?" Tu Diep paused to catch her breath, then smiled gently at him. "Because at home, we don't have enough water. But here, the stream is endless. It washes everything clean. When you do hard work, little one, you must always think carefully. Where is the best place? The right place. That's how we endure." He nodded, as if committing her words to memory. Then, after a moment, he added, "I want to help." She shook her head. "Not with this. You are too young. Your task is to watch, to learn, and to grow. That is help enough." The boy pouted slightly but obeyed, turning his eyes back to his book. He traced the letters with his finger, lips moving silently as he practiced. Tu Diep watched him for a moment, her heart softening. In his innocence, she saw the possibility of a future unburdened by the mistakes of the past, a future she wanted to protect. At last, the hardest part of the butchering was done. She rinsed her hands in the cool water, feeling the ache of exertion spread through her shoulders. "There," she murmured, more to herself than to the boy. "Now the real work begins." From her basket, she pulled out a small pouch of salt and a few dried herbs she had gathered from the hillsides. Wild garlic, pepper leaves, a handful of crushed seeds that lent a faint bitterness she had learned to value. These were her treasures, humble but powerful. Without them, the meat would spoil. With them, it could be transformed. The boy leaned forward eagerly. "What are you doing now?" "Spices," she explained, mixing the salt with the herbs in a small bowl. "Salt keeps the meat from rotting. These herbs add flavor. Without a refrigerator, this is how we survive. The old ways. What you taste tomorrow is the work we do today." He tilted his head, absorbing every word. "So, the meat will last because of the salt?" "Yes." She smiled at his curiosity. "One day, you will know how to do it yourself. Then, you will never go hungry." With steady hands, she rubbed the mixture deep into the cuts of meat, her fingers pressing firmly to ensure every surface was covered. The aroma rose in the air, sharp, earthy, alive. The boy wrinkled his nose at first, then smiled as the scents mingled with the breeze. "It smells strong," he admitted. "Strong is good," Tu Diep replied with a chuckle. "Strong food makes strong people." As the meat absorbed the seasonings, she strung portions onto bamboo sticks she had prepared earlier. These would hang later above her kitchen fire, where the smoke would dry and preserve them further. Some would be eaten fresh, but most would become smoked pork, a delicacy that fetched a good price at the market. If she was lucky, she would have enough not only to eat, but also to sell. By the time she finished, the boy had set his book aside and was following her every movement with wide eyes. "Teacher," he asked shyly, "can I try reading to you now?" She glanced at him, her face softening. "Of course. Go ahead." He picked up the book again, his finger tracing the lines. "T, R, E, E, tree, S, U, N, sun, C, A, T, cat." "Very good," she praised, clapping her hands lightly. "You see, you are learning faster each day." The boy beamed, pride glowing on his face. "One day, I will read as well as you." "One day," she agreed, her heart warmed. "And when you do, you must promise to teach another child, so the learning never ends." "I promise," he said earnestly. Satisfied, Tu Diep gathered the seasoned meat and packed it carefully into a basket lined with banana leaves. She stood, stretching her tired back, and nodded toward the path home. "Come, little one. Let's go back before the sun grows too hot." The return walk was slower, burdened by the weight of the meat. The boy skipped ahead at times, chasing dragonflies, then ran back to her side when he realized she was lagging. At last, they reached the house, its wooden beams glowing softly in the sunlight. Inside, the air was cool, carrying the faint scent of smoke from the kitchen hearth. Tu Diep hung the meat above the fire, arranging each piece carefully so that the smoke would curl around it evenly. Already, the room filled with a savory aroma that made the boy's stomach growl. "Hungry?" she asked with a smile. He nodded sheepishly. "A little." She laughed, ruffling his hair again. "Patience. First, I will cook rice. Then, we will taste a little of the meat." While the rice simmered, she crouched to prepare a smaller cut of pork for immediate roasting. She skewered it on a stick and held it carefully over the flames, turning it slowly. The fat sizzled, dripping onto the coals with a hiss. The smell grew richer, filling the room with warmth and promise. The boy could hardly sit still. "Teacher, it smells so good." "Good things take time," she reminded him, though her own mouth watered. When the rice was ready and the meat roasted to perfection, she laid everything out on the low table. A pot of steaming rice, the skewered pork, and a dish of pickled vegetables she had prepared the week before. It was a simple meal, yet to them, it felt like a feast. "Come," she said, motioning for him to sit. They bowed their heads briefly in silent gratitude, then began to eat. The boy tore into the pork eagerly, his eyes widening as the smoky, savory flavor filled his mouth. "Teacher, this is delicious," he exclaimed. Tu Diep smiled, chewing slowly, savoring the fruit of her labor. "Eat well, little one. Food is strength, and strength is life." They ate until their bellies were full, the boy leaning back with a satisfied sigh. Tu Diep watched him fondly, her heart at peace despite her exhaustion. This was the rhythm of her days. Work, care, patience, survival, and within it, small joys like this meal that made the struggle worthwhile. As evening shadows lengthened outside, she gathered the dishes and set them aside. The boy yawned, his eyelids heavy. She tucked him into the mat in the corner, covering him with a light blanket. "Sleep well," she whispered. Then, with the house quiet around her, she sat by the fire, staring into the flickering flames. Her thoughts drifted once more to James, far away in another world. She wondered if he had eaten, if he was tired, if he missed her as much as she missed him. She longed for his voice, his presence, his steady hand in hers. Tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges. But tonight, she allowed herself this one luxury: hope. The sky outside deepened into twilight, streaked with shades of violet and crimson. A soft breeze carried the scent of damp earth through the wooden shutters. Tu Diep set another log onto the fire, its crackle filling the small house with gentle comfort. Above the flames, the strips of pork hung quietly, slowly absorbing the smoke that curled upward like whispered prayers. The boy stirred from his nap, rubbing his eyes and sitting up. "Teacher, is it night already?" She nodded, smiling. "Yes, little one, you slept like a rock. Are you hungry again?" He grinned sheepishly. "A little." Tu Diep chuckled, rising to prepare another meal. She brought down a small pot of rice, reheating what remained from earlier, and set aside a few pieces of pork that had dried enough to roast quickly over the coals. The smell filled the room once more, drawing the boy close to the fire, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. When the food was ready, she laid it out on the table. It was a modest spread: rice, roasted pork, and a small dish of greens from the garden. But together, they looked inviting. She motioned for him to sit, and they both clasped their hands briefly, giving thanks in silence before eating. For a while, there was only the sound of chewing, the boy too busy filling his stomach to speak. Then, between bites, his voice grew softer. "Teacher, why haven't my parents come to get me yet?" Tu Diep paused, her chopsticks hovering above the bowl. She looked at him carefully, seeing the flicker of sadness in his eyes. "They are busy, little one," she said gently. "Sometimes life makes people travel far, but they love you very much. That is why they asked me to care for you until they return. He frowned, pushing at his rice with his spoon. But what if they don't come back? Her heart tightened. She reached across the table, laying her hand over his small one. "Listen to me," she said softly. "Love always finds its way home. Sometimes it takes longer than we hope, but it comes. Until then, you are safe here with me. You are not alone." The boy's eyes glistened, but he nodded, reassured by her steady voice. He took another bite of pork, chewing thoughtfully. After a moment, he whispered, "Thank you, teacher." Tu Diep squeezed his hand gently before letting go. "Now eat. You need strength to grow tall. One day your parents will be proud to see how strong you've become." They finished the meal in companionable silence. When the dishes were cleared, the boy curled up near the fire again, his eyelids drooping. Tu Diep covered him with a blanket, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. His breathing slowed, deep and steady, as he slipped into sleep. Alone in the quiet, she sat by the fire, her thoughts drifting once more across the ocean. She missed James fiercely, the way his laughter used to fill this room, the way he could carry heavy burdens with calm determination. She longed for the sound of his voice, the comfort of his presence. As if summoned by her longing, her phone buzzed softly on the table. She reached for it, heart quickening when she saw his name glowing on the screen. With trembling fingers, she answered. "James," she breathed, her voice breaking into a smile. "Diep," came his reply, warm and familiar. "How are you? How was your day?" She leaned back, letting the sound of him wash over her like a balm. "It was long," she admitted. "I bought a pig today, a big one. It took all my strength to butcher it by the stream. My arms still ache." He chuckled softly. "Only you could say such a thing so calmly. A whole pig. That must mean you'll have enough meat for months." "Yes," she said. "Smoked pork to last the winter." The boy helped me, in his own way. He read to me while I worked. His letters are improving. "That's wonderful," James replied. "You always manage to teach, even in the middle of hard work." For a moment, neither spoke, simply listening to each other's breaths across the distance. Then, his voice grew more serious. "Diep, I have good news. My job here, it's almost settled. The paperwork is being finalized. Soon, I'll be able to come home." Her heart leapt, though she tried to keep her voice steady. "Truly? You mean it?" "Yes," he said firmly. "It won't be much longer. I've missed you every day. I think of you whenever I eat, whenever I rest. I imagine you by the fire, waiting. I want to return, to sit at that table again, to taste your cooking." Tears pricked her eyes, blurring the firelight. "I miss you too, James. More than I can say. The house feels empty without you. But I hold on. I keep working. For you. For us. You're strong," he said softly. "Stronger than anyone I know. I'm proud of you, Diep." Her throat tightened, but she forced a small laugh. "Proud? I'm just a woman with sore arms and smoke in her hair." "Exactly," he said, smiling in his voice. "And yet you carry everything. One day, I'll carry it with you again." They lingered in conversation, trading small details of their days. Her chickens and ducks, his long hours at the factory, the way the seasons were changing in their separate worlds. The distance remained, but the sound of his voice bridged it, if only for a little while. At last, the boy stirred in his sleep, mumbling softly. Tu Diep glanced at him, then whispered into the phone, "I should let you go. It's late." "Soon, Diep," James said firmly. "Soon I'll be there. Until then, take care of yourself and the boy." "I will," she promised. "Good night, James." "Good night, my love." She ended the call, staring at the dark screen for a long moment before setting it aside. The fire crackled softly, the smoked pork hanging above it like silent guardians. The boy breathed steadily in the corner. Outside, the night hummed with crickets. The stars scattered like seeds across the sky. Tu Diep wrapped her arms around herself, both comforted and aching. The debt of loneliness was heavy, but hope had returned. James was coming home. Until then, she would endure. She lay down beside the sleeping boy, listening to the rhythm of his breaths, and let her eyes drift closed. Tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges. But for now, she allowed herself to rest in the fragile, glowing promise of reunion.